Hi everyone, it's Henry here, and welcome to this video where we're looking at painting some more Death Korps of Krieg. A few weeks ago we did a really popular video focusing on our Commission Chief Ben's scheme that he does for his Krieg army. People really enjoyed it. Ben has a fantastic take on how to paint Krieg, and I think it really resonated with a lot of you. But there was a couple of sort of overwhelming requests, which were how would we do the sort of blue box art scheme, and how would we do the horses. So this is very much designed as a companion video to that one. If you watch both, you should more or less get everything that we wanted to try and get across in the pair of them. But essentially that's to just go for that slightly grittier, slightly more imperial armour, which is an old series of Forge World books, that kind of military modelling look, but how to get it done on a sort of army painting scale where, you know, you're getting a unit done between sessions, hitting the table, and they're looking awesome. So let's paint. So Games Workshop sent us through the new command squad for review, and I had a look through, and what I really wanted to try and do was see if I could take the Commissar and kitbash and convert that using the Marshal Dreer figure from the original launch box. Sadly, in the plastic and the way the kits go together, it was going to be an awful lot of work, and certainly more work than I wanted to put in for this particular video. But I still wanted to see if there was something I could do that was a bit different, because, you know, we're fortunate to get sent these things, and it's fun to muck around with them and see what can be done, and maybe save you guys the wondering if it works and having to chop up some kits and finding out it doesn't. So in the end, I thought, well, cool, let's make a regimental standard bearer, but let's make them mounted. So it's a simple arm swap, really. I've really hoped I was just going to be able to pop the hand off and place it, so it was held out like that, but the angle of the wrists and everything didn't match up quite right. So in the end, it was just easier to remove the entire arm. And all I'm really using for this are these side cutters. These are by Redgrass. They're really, really excellent. If you like doing kit bashing, I really recommend getting a good quality pair of side cutters. They're different to the sort of clippers that you use to chomp through sprue and all the rest of it. They give you a really, really clean, accurate cut. So that, you know, and a hobby knife and stuff, and it was easy enough. Bit of plastic glue, smush it together, looks fab. And for sub-assemblies, I've simply pinned the flag, partly because I wanted to slightly change the direction of it, because I felt it covered him up a little bit too much and it didn't quite work with the wind direction, but also just be easier to paint by just pinning it in like that. Now, you will find this a lot easier to paint on the normal Death Riders, because the riders and the mounts are two separate pieces, and they're really, really easy to paint separately. Marshal Dreer is not. He's like half sculpted on, which was typical. But anyway, we'll have a pop. So when it comes to the blue, first off, I'm going to base coat it using Games Workshop Nightlords Blue. All the paints you see me using through my airbrush, I'm going to be thinning with normal airbrush thinner. In this case, I'm using Vallejo airbrush thinner. I find this works absolutely fine. And generally, I'm going to be thinning them slightly more thinner than paint, so slightly more than 50-50. I'm spraying at about 20 to 25 psi, and I'm using a 0.4mm needle and nozzle. And in this case, I'm using our Harder and Steenbeck signature series Infinity. So we're just looking to get a good coverage of that initial Nightlords Blue. Blue's a very, very forgiving colour to paint with anyway with regards to coverage. So you're not going to have any drama with this anyway. This is going to have quite a lot of airbrush use in it, because this is how Ben and I paint. And it's going to make getting this look very, very achievable very quickly. So yeah, you could absolutely use the same colours and use a hairy brush. So the next one we're going to load up is Kantor Blue. And as you saw me indicating there, we're just going to light the cloth as if there's a just general light from above. So surfaces that are facing slightly more upwards will be lighter or brighter than areas that are facing away. So we're probably looking to cover, I don't know, 80%, something like that, of the previous coat with this Kantor Blue. And then for the highlight, I'm mixing in the Fang, which is this nice sort of greyed out lighter blue, blue-grey, whatever you want to call it. Actually, it worked fantastically well. This is one of those nice situations where someone asked how would I do it, and I was like, I'm not sure. Grabbed my big bag of blue paints, pulled them out, and I was like, I reckon those three will work well. And first time, I was really happy with them. That's not always the way it goes on these videos, I can tell you that. But yeah, really nice. I think a really nice combo actually of blues, and ones I might look at actually for Nightlords. I think it might work quite well. But you can see here with that final mix, we're doing probably, I would say 50 to sort of 75% of that previous area we're hitting with it. So just those brighter bits. And then for the areas of red, so the flag obviously is a particularly big bit, but then you've also got the I don't know what you call them, the fancy bits down on his saddle. Livery? Not sure. I really want to check these things before recording. I'm going to base coat using Galval Black. I just wanted these to be like a nice, dark, fairly deep, sort of rich red. So Galval Black worked as a base coat. I'm not worrying about masking. For this, I'm confident with my airbrush. I'm quite accurate with it. I'm trying not to get overspray on the horse. And I know I'm not going to get overspray on that initial bit of the coat. But also, don't be too worried about it. Like, you're leaving quite broad areas of sort of shadow between different parts anyway, so don't stress. And then I wanted to do corn as the main red. So as the brightest red was just going to be corn, because again, it's this quite deep, sort of boring red. Again, just spraying top down. The way Games Workshop sculpt their fabrics, they respond really, really well to this sort of zenithal style of highlighting, where you angle your brush as if it is the light source. So everything that it hits is brighter, and everything that you can't hit with that is darker. The way they sculpt the folds and everything, it works absolutely brilliantly. You saw I had a tiny bit of blue tack there on that bit of masking because I didn't want to ruin it on that part. And then I'm going to do a very light gloss varnish. That's just one layer through my airbrush of gloss varnish. That's because I want to use some masking fluid, and that's just to make sure that when I do remove it, there's not any risk of me pulling any of the paint away. Providing your paint is dry underneath, you shouldn't have any dramas at all anyway, but it doesn't hurt to be sure with it. And as I say, you're not going to have to worry about doing any of this with the normal Death Riders. You can just pop them on and off, no problems at all. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to those of you that support us over on Patreon. You're getting over there extra videos, usually based on display level and multi-part series. So currently Andy's just going to be kicking off his Golden Demon piece, so that will be a big multi-parter leading up to Adepticon this year. It's an absolutely incredible piece. I really encourage you to go and check that one out. But you're getting sort of exclusive podcast things on there. You'll get early access to class tickets and event tickets and stuff like that. So it's the support you guys give us over there, we really, really appreciate it. We wouldn't be able to do everything that we do without the guys' support over on Patreon. So thank you so much. And if for any reason you can't support us there, pop a like, subscribe, comments, everything on this YouTube video. That makes a huge difference, and I really appreciate them. So thank you. For the flag as well, blue trim, I just brush painted. It's exactly the same blues, but I've just gone in and brush painted them. I've got a couple of brand new brushes I'm breaking in on this video, so take a little while to get used to them again. It's always funny when you look at the ones you've been using and realise just how much you've whittled them down to there. On the blue scheme, they have a much lighter sort of interior, and all I've done for that is just used the Fang on its own, not mixed in, and I felt that was a lovely mixture between the two. For a final highlight, I did mix in just a dot of white for that. Now, for the mounts, I know they're not horses, right? They're like vat bred weird horses, but I don't really know what else to call them. So now we've got that masking fluid on there, we can go in with our airbrush, be confident here. And this is why I was trying to be careful earlier to not get any overspray on the horse as well. It shouldn't be an issue. The Thondia Brown that we're going to base coat it with, it's got decent coverage, so it should pretty much go over anything that you may have accidentally sprayed over there anyway. It's a nice thing about the airbrush, because we're using such translucent layers, such thin layers, often mistakes are very, very easy to fix. And again, it's a fantastic tool for this kind of painting, this kind of process. Where every single individual step isn't hugely impactful. They just add together. There's not much stress involved in any stage, which is, I think, really nice for sort of army painting and stuff like that. So our first one we're going to go for is Baneblade Brown over that Thondia Brown. Now, this is partly because I think it's the right colour to match what the box art looks like, more or less, but also Baneblade is a paint that I'm going to mix into most things if I want to create a highlight on this miniature. So we get a nice little bit of harmony if we can use it sort of elsewhere and on larger surfaces like this. And then I'm just blasting on a little bit of extra around the feet because we're going to pink those up in a little bit. But you can see I was pretty generous with the coverage, that zenithal highlight of the Baneblade. I went in and did 2 coats, waited for the first one to dry, and then did a second one. So really only leaving that Thondia in the very darkest sort of recesses. And then I wanted to just one extra highlight on top, a little bit sort of creepier colour. And Rakarth Flesh, one of my absolute favourites. It's not a huge jump in value between the two, but I do think it makes a difference. And again, I've thinned this one probably slightly more than any other paint you've seen me use so far. That's because generally the lighter you go, the trickier colours can be. through the airbrush, particularly when they're just a water-based acrylic. So yeah, I want to go a little bit thinner just to try and prevent too much of that sort of speckling or anything like that. But that's it, just nice and simple. 3 colours again, trying to really focus on all those things that Ben said about painting his. I tried to apply all of that to this scheme, so sort of at every stage, sort of has to be impactful, can't be redundant. Getting it done is the key thing. So here I've used Magos Purple contrast paint. I love using contrast paints through the airbrush. I thin these much less, so this has probably got 1 drop of thinner to 2 or 3 drops of contrast paint. Still spraying at the same pressure though and everything. And we're just going to start working up the feet. And that probably had about 5 to 10 layers in the end, just to sort of nice blend it up. And then I want it to be a little bit deeper, a little bit richer around the base of the feet. So I've gone in there with Volpous Pink, which is a lot stronger. If I'd gone in with Volpous Pink to begin with, I think it would have been too much blended up. That's why I've done the Magos Purple first, because it's a bit more mellow. But I'd say I want it a bit more intense around the base of the feet. And here I'm just going in with the brush rather than the airbrush, so it really gets nice and deep in the recesses. Obviously, when you airbrush a paint, it doesn't retain its properties like contrast paint does. And then just time to remove the mask, a bit of blue tack, that you catch the right bit, and that way you're not risking scratching it by using like tweezers or things like that to peel it off. Bit of blue tack, it will grab hold of it, and then you can just slowly peel it off. It's always quite satisfying as well to do that. Lots of people do the liquid mask. It's just liquid latex, so whatever you've got available at your hobby shop will be absolutely fine. Now the armour panels, super simple. Didn't even really need a chapter heading for that one. I'm just going to use Corvus Black. I'm going to do them how we did the weaponry on the green scheme, because I love how it looks. And I also really like, again, it's got a bit of that blue in. And I know it means we don't get tons of contrast, but I just like that. I like the fact that the blue is what shines through on this scheme. Well, in a very dull way. But yeah, and Corvus Black's one of my favourite paints as well. I don't know, it's just something about the colour I really enjoy. Now, moving on to the leather. Doing this exactly the same way as I did on the previous guys. I love this recipe. I'm using it more and more now. It was quite time consuming on this model because of having to be neat and tidy. I say time consuming, it's about 10 minutes to do the horse. If you're at all worried about going on the horse and mucking up that airbrush work, just a light gloss coat like we did earlier would do a great job of just protecting that. So if you did get a bit of that brown on it, it would be very easy for you to wipe that off with a wet paintbrush. Or even if you came back later, just a tiny little dot of airbrush thinner or something like that, and you'd be able to wipe off pretty confidently without damaging anything else. And then I've run out of Catachan Flesh, so I just mixed up a bit of Rhinox and Bugman's. It's more or less the same, but Catachan Flesh is the actual sort of recipe that Ben gave me. And then mix in a little bit of Baneblade as a final highlight for that leather. Now, I was going to paint the flag similar to the box art in the sense of they've done like an NMM gold on the sort of symbols and everything. And I said this to Ben. I said, that's what I'm going to do. That sound fine. And he used some fairly colourful language. But essentially, the take home was, no, that would be foolish. I would not be doing NMM on this at all. I was like, oh, righto. So don't worry about that. He goes, just do it like a dull brassy colour. It's like, fine by me, not a problem. But the little bit of sort of tassels on the whatever this is, the rug going under the saddle, I thought I will do a little NMM gold, and this is the colours I would use if I was going to do it on the flag. Just super simple: Rhinox hide, Hobgrot hide, and then an intermediate mix of the two. I think it provides a really nice, quite dull gold colour, and yeah, just layer it up. Don't do so much the previous one. Metals, very simple. I'm going to use a very dark silver here. So this is dark silver metallic by Pro Acryl, but you could just mix a little black or something into Lead Belcher or Iron Warrior, something like that. And we're just going to do lots of little sort of tippy-tappy chips all along the edges and just sort of pick those out on the black armour. That's it. I absolutely love how this looks. I reckon you could probably have some fun as well using like graphite, something like sort of military model style. Just run that along with your finger. That probably look pretty smart as well. Then all the brass stuff's just going to get coated decayed metal. I love using decayed metal, obviously, but man, painting like this is so out my wheelhouse in the sense of I just want to do a bit more. But you've got to trust that process. I know how good Ben's army looks. I know how effective this is, and again, it's the difference between finishing the model in one hobby session, or probably 2 hobby sessions for this guy, if I'm honest. But your normal Death Riders, or 1 or 2 hobby sessions, certainly you know, between a game you're getting a unit painted. It is the difference, you know, not doing those extra steps that only maybe have 5 or 10% more impact, but are actually quite a lot more work. And then for the silver, I'm going to use Burnt Iron by Metal Colour Series. And that's simply, it's a very similar colour to Iron Warriors, as you can see there. But that's simply because on this model, most of the metal is sort of recessed into the horse, like where it's been repaired and stuff. And this Metal Colour Series paint flows so beautifully off the brush. It's perfect for doing this kind of job with. If it was larger, flatter panels, I'd use Iron Warriors. Now, you may have noticed I haven't painted the mane or the plume on this guy, and that's simply because I found I've been touching them loads as I've been painting the model. So I figured if I painted them at the same stage as everything else, I would just be rubbing that paint off constantly. So that's why I've left them up until this point. For the mane, I thought, you know, again, relatively close to the box art. It's a bit more grey, I think, in the box art. But I was like, just keep it pretty boring, pretty simple, sort of a brown. And we go just mixed in Baneblade with a bit of, was that Rhinox on there, I think it was. And then, yeah, just highlighted that with the Baneblade. It's worked absolutely fine. The sculpt does tons of work for you here anyway. I would say a very, very relaxing miniature to paint. Everything's really nicely defined, much like the Eldar were the other week. Yeah, you Krieg lot you're so lucky. We've got an amazing range now. I cannot wait to see what people are going to do with Krieg armies. Now, for the weathering, I'm going to use this German Camo Black Brown. It's a paint I really like. I don't know if it's still available. Mix some black into drier bark and you're going to get a very similar sort of colour. We're going to use a sponge here. Really important we don't have too much paint on the sponge, because what we don't want to do is get all these little chips on the horse, or on the flesh of the horse. And there's going to be some areas we're going to get quite close. So just take your time a little bit. Really important we do plenty of this over the decals as well. We kind of try and weather and tie those in. But as I say, I'll go into a little bit more depth on this in the previous Krieg video. I think it's only about another 20-minute video, so I didn't want there to be too much redundancy between the videos. But also, you know, I don't want to skip too many steps if this is the first one that you're coming to. And again, the same idea with the basing. Actually, I go through the full process in the green video, but it felt like the right time to start doing some of the basing at this point, because it was going to take a little while to dry, as were the oils. So I just did them at the same stage. For the oils, we're going to use a nice dark brown. Here I've chosen to use Sepia by Abteilung 502. You'll see me use it very often. But if you haven't got that, mix a little black into burnt umber. You'll get a perfectly good colour as well. And I'm just thinning this down with normal DIY shop mineral spirits, white spirits we call them here in the UK. And I'm mixing it down roughly 50-50. We don't want to use too much mineral spirits. It'll split your oil out too much, and it'll go all bitty and horrible. But yeah, as long as all the paint is dry, we don't need to be worrying about varnishes or anything like that. So as long as all that acrylic paint is dry, we can just go straight over the top with our oils. And I am going to cover the entire model with this. Just a nice thin wash coat. You can see I'm taking my time. I'm not just slopping it on. I'm trying to make sure that when I end my brush stroke, I'm ideally sort of ending it in a recess so that the majority of that liquid's going to pool in those recesses. And then I also took the opportunity here to do a little bit of sort of splatters, mud splatters, because it's Kriegy and it's cool and I like doing it. So whilst that previous layer is still a little bit wet, I've just got a bit of that oil paint on my, you see I'm just using a Q-tip here or a cocktail stick, whatever, and just flick a bit of it off. And the nice thing about using the oil paint like this is it ever so slightly sort of dissipates out. And I think gives you a really lovely sort of natural look to mud spatters. And it's fun and it's quick. There's not really any skill involved, which is always a winner. And then I thought just a tiny bit of verdigris just to make those brass things look a bit more interesting. So I've used a colour called Turquoise Lights here by Abteilung 502, but you know, any turquoise or even something like what's it called, Lilac Oxide, if you don't want to use oils, you know, that just something to give that really large area of brass just a little something. So when all that's dry, and I left it overnight, but you'd be all right after a couple of hours. Once all that's dry, quick blast with a hairdryer to make sure. I've painted the base in as well, because now I'm going to give the model a matte varnish. And the reason I've done the base up until this stage is because if I'd put the powders on and then done the varnish, I might have blown them off. So I've just done this beforehand. Also, a massive mosquito's just flown at my face. Right, what we're talking about here. Oh yes, finishing touches. I just felt that the flag and his face needed just a little lift, particularly because, you know, this is a character mini, so I don't think spending 5 more minutes on him is particularly out of line. I'm sure Ben won't be too cross. So I wanted, again, a pale, washed out sort of brassy colour. We'll go with Rune Lord Brass. It's really nice for that. So I say just a little bit here and there on the flag, a little bit on the face area of the standard bearer. job done. No more than that. As much as I wanted to go in on all the brass and do loads more stuff, no, it's just decayed metal with an oil wash over it. Bosh, done. Looks really smart. Well done. Yeah, great scheme. And now we're just going to smash all the padders in. I didn't realise the camera was still running at this point, but I figured I'd leave the footage in because you might find it useful. And it's, I've got it, so you can see. I'm not actually moving this quickly. I have in fact sped this piece of footage up. But yeah, you can see we just smoosh it all in, and then with a wet brush, we just run that along the top, or damp brush, run it along the top, and that just makes sure that the stuff's really just in the recesses. Lots of ways of doing powders on bases, but this is the way Ben's done it on his. I think it looks fab. And there we go. He's all done. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like, Ben knows how to do schemes, and I think he'll be pleased with this one. I think this is quite faithful to his ethos and the style that we did his scheme in. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it. This is proper army painting stuff. You are smashing through an army like this, but because of the style, because of the products we use, because of the techniques we use, it's efficient, but I think it's very, very effective. This isn't really taking any longer than just base coating stuff like we would normally, but doing it in maybe slightly different ways, maybe using the odd thing like an oil wash and stuff, just differentiates it that bit more. And all of a sudden, yes, it's quick, yes, it's efficient, but I don't think it looks any poorer for any of that. And again, having seen Ben's army in person, I know how impactful it looks on the table. I'm incredibly excited about Krieg at the minute, simply because I managed to get my hands on a copy of the Siege of Rax. So yeah, if you're watching this video who I got it off, thank you very, very much. It means a huge amount to me. I didn't think I was going to be able to have those books. So yeah, that's awesome. But also, as someone who does not have time to paint a Krieg army, it's been a real buzz getting to do a few videos for the channel with these guys. A few of you asked about tanks and stuff. Again, the link will be there to a video Ben did a year or so ago when the Rogal Dawn came out, where he showed how he paints his tanks up for that army. But yeah, I hope you can see here, once it's all done, all the finishes are spot on. We've given the base a nice black rim. It's really, really smart. This is a character model, so the sculpt's doing a load of work for us anyway. And as I say, your normal Death Riders will take you even less time to be doing. So if you guys are going to go and have a go at Krieg using any of the schemes we've done, I would love for you to give us a tag or comment or something in social media. Instagram's probably best, or jump on the Discord. Our Discord, the link's down below. It's all free. There's no Patreon only stuff or anything with that, so you can just join up. I would absolutely love to see people if they do put this on their armies, because yeah, I just think they'll look absolutely awesome. So as usual, if you have any questions at all about anything I've done in the video, please pop them down in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks ever so much for all of your support. Take care, and I'll see you next time. If you've liked any of the models in this video and you fancy having an army of them yourself, but perhaps you don't have the time or wherewithal to get it done, consider dropping us an email at commissions@cultofpaint.com, and maybe Ben can sort you out.